am your host, James Parker, and I'm not quite sure if we're not on the brink of World War III yet again, or if this whole thing is winding down. I think smart minds can come to both conclusions looking at what's going on in the ground, and obviously talking about the Ukraine-Russia situation. Now, there's been so much that happened just since yesterday's show. We had talked about the drone attack for the first couple of days this week. I mean, it seemed like something out of a movie. It looked like a Michael Bay movie. But that really happened. That was a real thing. This wasn't Mission Impossible 19 or whatever we're up to. Bunch of trucks, thousands of miles apart, just opened their doors at the same time. A couple hundred drones flew out. Millions and millions of very strategic military assets were lost for Russia. And you got to imagine Putin's livid. You know, now Putin's not going to do what my kids do and go have a hissy fit and slam doors. But I think it's quite a positive sign that Putin and Trump talked this morning. And they talked for about an hour and a half. And this wasn't anything secret. But I don't know if you get all the context. Because also going on right now in Istanbul, Turkey, there is the peace talks that are going on between the Ukraine and Russia. Now, also sounding like a movie, you know, like when The Godfather went and had their little summits with people, and there would be crazy stuff going on in the background while they're trying to work out some sort of deal with the five families. That's almost exactly what's going on here. Here we have another movie setting. We're in peace talks in Istanbul. And then tomorrow when they sit down, what was that drone strike that happened overnight? Oh, me? Oh, jeepers. I didn't know about that. Wow, I'm just sitting here trying to work out peace talks. Oh, okay. And there was also a Russia drone attack, which didn't get nearly the media attention. Thanks a lot, media. Very sus of you. And then also this morning, I found out that there was an attack by the Ukrainians on a bridge that connects Crimea to the mainland of Russia. Crimea, which used to be Ukraine, which Russia just said, Crimea is mine now. When Obama was in power, no one did anything about it. No one cared. It wasn't a pro-Putin thing. He wasn't accused of being friends with fascist dictators or anything like that. They just handed it over. And part of the symbolism of the attack was attacking the symbolism of that bridge. Because Putin had that bridge built after he took Crimea. He's like, well, since this is going to be Russia now, we might want to have another little land connection here that goes straight to this little part of Russia where they had the Sochi Olympics. This is right up the road from that. Now, it wasn't an effective strike. The bridge was closed for a few hours. They evaluated it. I don't know if they slapped some flex tape on there or what, but apparently it's reopened already. So I guess it wasn't that big of a strike, but that makes me just a little more solid. Oh, this was a symbolic thing. This was sort of a thumb in your nose at Putin personally, I guess. But yeah, let's cover some of this. CBS News covering the bridge attack.
Ukraine says it carried out an attack on the bridge linking Russia and the Crimean Peninsula. According to Ukraine's security service, underwater explosives were used to damage the bridge following an operation lasting several months. Tuesday's attack was the third time Ukraine had targeted this structure, which was built by Russia after it annexed the Crimean Peninsula in 2014.
Wow, what a cool story. So underwater explosives. On one side of the bridge is the mainland of Russia. On the other side of the bridge is that little Crimean Peninsula. It almost looks like an island, but it's now Russia. So you had to have some, underwater guys? I mean, do they pop out of a submarine or something? Or they sneak up on like a little dinghy raft and then go down? But some guys had to scuba dive down, plant explosives, get the heck out of Dodge, and detonate it remotely. All for a symbolism. All for a symbolic attack. So that's kind of wild. And, when things get this personal, you kind of think, if they're not being rational here, then things that you rationally think would end the war might not work, when you show all the destruction or how much it's going to cost. If they're taking this personal, then maybe we're escalating this in the wrong direction. There was a guest that was on the CBS Morning Show today talking about the bridge being attacked. Charlie DeGata. I don't think you've heard this anywhere else. Check this out.
Well, considering the slugfest, the brawl that both sides are currently engaged in, I don't think anybody was expecting a breakthrough in Istanbul. The Russians have escalated their attacks on civilian targets. President Zelensky said they're hitting infrastructure and civilian targets in the east, and of course, Ukraine launching those unprecedented attacks thousands of miles from the front lines. The Russians now are actually demanding more territory than ever since before 2014. They're also saying that Ukraine must reduce its army and promise not to join any military alliance, let alone NATO, which are clear deal breakers. And the Russians know this.
Now, if that's true, what Charlie DeGata just said, that sounds like, oh, this is pushing us away from a peace deal. But then again, that's how businessmen posture when they're in the middle of negotiations. Oh, I don't need this deal. I could walk away at any time. You need me more than I need you. But does Putin really have that firm of a ground to stand on? Or is he just putting up a front because that's what you do when you're in the middle of negotiations? Condoleezza Rice was on Fox and Friends this morning, and she gave you some very important lessons that we have learned from the drone strikes on Russia from Ukraine.
But it shows a couple of things. First, the changing nature of warfare, that you can do this with relatively cheap drones.
$2,000 drones.
Exactly, against the Russian strategic air fleet, which has caused billions and billions of dollars. Secondly, it shows that the Ukrainians are very advanced in what they are doing in their defense industry with the building of these drones and an employment strategy for them. And third, it is an incredible intelligence coup.
And that's one of the concerns here, because the intelligence issue, I think, is key here, because I find it really hard to believe that Ukraine could pull this off by themselves without some sort of help from an outside actor. And is that us? Is it us militarily doing this openly and transparently? Is this us doing it through some dark work from the CIA? Or Condoleezza Rice brings up another super interesting point. Did the Ukrainians have help from inside Russia?
Vladimir Putin is undoubtedly now wondering whether there was an inside job. You're probably going to see a witch hunt in Russia as he tries to figure out who did this inside. So it just shows that just with a little bit of help, the Ukrainians can make Vladimir Putin pay for his aggression.
Wow. Think about that. Inside job. Now, I don't think that's the most likely scenario. It's possible. I don't think I would go so far as probable. But if that is the case, then this whole Russian experiment could be about to collapse again, just like the Soviet Union. You didn't know the Soviet Union was going to collapse until the day it collapsed. They weren't telling you like a week ahead. It's like, well, we're thinking about winding this whole thing down, or they didn't put in a 2-week notice. It just collapses. Just like when the Berlin Wall fell. You remember that? It was just one day. We're going to tear this down. Why? There was a protest. Well, really? That's it? Just going to collapse like that? But when an actual oligarchy falls apart, that means maybe some oligarchs were helping out the Ukrainians to weaken Putin, and someone else wants to take power. Oh, a lot of scuttlebutt there. But the big question is this Ukraine-Russia conflict winding down or ramping up? I'm leaning toward winding down, but let's see what Dr. Jeffrey Brodeur says from Rigaku. He'll be on the show next. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Hey there, fellow Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. I'm your host, James Parker. A lot going on with the Russia-Ukraine situation. At the same time, they're having peace talks in Istanbul. They're trading drone strikes on each other. A whole lot of stuff's blowing up. There's an attempted bombing of a very symbolic bridge. And here to do this magical thing where he tells us stuff we don't know about the situation yet, Dr. Jeffrey Broder from Rigaku is coming back on. Welcome back, Dr. Jeffrey. He's a expert in chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear consultants, and I guess now drone stuff at Rigaku.
Thank you very much, sir. Good to be back with you.
So let's go ahead and skip to that last little bullet point here, because we saw the drone strikes that Russia and Ukraine exchanged, kind of technologically advanced, a new progressive angle at taking war. But then this bridge strike, I woke up this morning, Ukraine tried to blow up a bridge, and this didn't look so accomplished and competent. This looked like kind of a failure, or more of just really a symbolic strike. What's the deal with them trying to blow up the Crimean bridge?
So it's to hamper the lines of support, so the lines of communication from the rear area of Russia, where supplies are at, and impede the flow into country. I might add, this is I think the fourth time Ukraine has conducted an attack like this on that bridge. And then in terms of your drone issue, I'd like to put things in perspective. It was October of 28 when ISIS started dropping munitions from drones on U.S. troops when we were in Iraq. This is not a new thing. It's a shiny thing that some people are just wrapping their heads around. But there's nothing new about this. The early days of Afghanistan, the U.S. was flying drones, rather large drones, and precision strikes.
Okay, so let's talk about the phone call that happened this morning. We had the exchange with the two drone attacks. We had the attempt for the fourth time to blow up this bridge. And Putin calls Trump. What's all that about? Does that sound productive to you, or does that sound like he's angry? What do you think?
No, I think Putin has us exactly where he wants us. He's feeding us a little bit of aid. I think promising some assistance negotiating with Iran, because he understands that Iran is a nuclear weapon state, is a red line for the United States, and I think he understands that helping us with that is going to garner some relief. But mark my word, Putin and the Russian army have not paused to break for tea. In fact, here's a couple of interesting notes on what the Russians are doing. They're really in Ukraine. That's really not publicized much. They're apparently, by open source reports, they're planning summer camps. That's right, for kids, Ukrainian children. Read that as military indoctrination. They plan to deport about 30,000 minors from occupied Ukrainian territories back into parts of Russia to help them appreciate and find their Russian roots. They're also integrating the infrastructure in occupied territories so that they grow. They stand up the agriculture. They stand up production facilities that were damaged during the war, only this time under Russian control. And then the last thing they're doing is they're sort of hijacking the electrical grid in occupied territories. So no, from my perspective, nothing really has changed. And the other key point I think that Putin is happy with is, to this date, he has kept NATO participating directly into the war. On NATO, here's some interesting stats you might be interesting.
Okay.
You sort of asked the question, who provides intelligence in support of Ukraine, and where did they receive the intelligence for this drone strike?
Right.
Here are some of the countries that have openly declared that they're supporting with intelligence. The United States and the United Kingdom both provide targeting on Russian sites to Ukraine. France, Germany, Italy, and Japan. So while they don't have the infrastructure, Ukraine is not short intelligence sources and real-time information.
All right, we're talking with Dr. Jeffrey Brodeur from Rigaku about what's going on in the foreign policy arena, more specifically Ukraine and Russia. Now, CBS was reporting that in the peace talks in Istanbul, Russia was making some claims that are deal breakers. You can't join any other alliances and a few other things, but it kind of made me think like they don't really want peace.
No, I think we chatted about this a little bit before. Russia was promised by the EU and the United States, I believe President Clinton was in office at the time, that we would not expand NATO east and encroach on the safety buffer perceived by Russia. And then we did the opposite. So I suspect Putin observes Ukraine as his buffer zone between NATO or opposing forces and the sovereignty of the Russian people.
Well, I know if Putin could wave a magic wand and get whatever he wants, he'd take the whole damn thing. Does he really think he could get Ukraine back?
He's been trying since 2014. For 11 years, he's been on a war footing. 2014 is when he invaded Crimea, part of Ukraine. He continues to march west. Yeah, absolutely. I think the only thing that's going to stop Putin, and this is an outlier scenario, if he dies of natural causes or man-made causes. Man,
what happens then?
Yeah, that's the big question, right? So "Love the One You're With" is a popular song. He could be replaced by somebody worse.
Condoleezza Rice said on Fox and Friends that Putin has to suspect this could be an inside job.
Vladimir Putin is undoubtedly now wondering whether there was an inside job. You're probably going to see a witch hunt.
Your reaction to that, Dr. Jeff?
Yeah, I think it's a nothing sandwich.
So probably not.
I really don't. And he may just kill 5 important people just to say he's still in charge. But it's not because of the drone strike. It's because he's got to remain in charge, and he can't have anybody inside of his inner circle that is not willing to die for him.
Man, sometimes this really does just sound like a movie. Thank you very much for the insights. I appreciate your time again, Dr. Jeffrey Brodeur from Rigaku. You're the best. All right, I'm going to ask you the same question. Do you think this Ukraine-Russia conflict is winding down or ramping up? Now, with all the negative stuff that you just heard from Dr. Jeffrey Brodeur and from the clips I was playing in the first segment and all the scary stuff you're seeing flash across your TV screen and social media, I'm leaning toward winding down, and I'll explain myself next. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Hey, homeowners. We are not out of storm season yet. We keep getting a little rain here and a little rain there, and the radar is not clear. And if you've been woken up by a storm, that's probably a good sign. You need to call my friends at Blue Ribbon Roofing. James Parker here for Blue Ribbon Roofing. Go to blueribbondfw.com. And if you don't trust me, the clever guy on the radio, look at some of the 5-star reviews. There's hundreds of them on Google, and you don't have to go to Google and look them up. You can go to Blue Ribbon. They are so proud of their work, and they do such a good job that they can just pass along, hey, here's a whole section where you can read our Google reviews, and go through, and you'll see a lot of other people enjoyed their experience and had some of their fears allayed. Because the number one thing that people are worried about is having to pay their deductible. If you get the bad news and you do need a new roof, how are you going to come out of pocket for that? Listen, Blue Ribbon Roofing cannot control whether or not you need a new roof, but they can help you not just put a new roof on, but work with the insurance company, see what some of your payment options are, and they'll work with you on that because they want you to enjoy the experience, and you leave a 5-star review when you're done. If you mention you heard it on WBAP and you do need a new roof, you get a free ridge vent ventilation upgrade. So call the family, John, Tish, and Trevor, blueribbondfw.com, blueribbondfw.com. Hey there. Welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. I am your host, James Parker. We are looking for the next venue for the James Show listener meetup. And it was a great one that we had in Keller last time. If you know a person that listens to the show that is either an owner or manager of a bar or restaurant or someplace we could do the next meetup, send me an email, james@wbap.com, or a Facebook message, however you want. That's my only criteria. Is the person who owns the place or runs the place has to be a listener of WBAP, and then we'll all get together on like a Tuesday or a Wednesday and hang out, have a few beers, tell some stories, and have a good time. All right, top story of the day is this whole situation that's going on with Ukraine and Russia. Now, Ukraine and Russia, they've been throwing volleys at each other for the last, 3 years now? Or is it up to 4 years? Let's see. No, 3 years. And Yeah. So 3 years and some change. Now, we don't cover it all day, every day, because it would get boring. This isn't the Ukraine-Russia show. This is a Texas talk radio show, and we usually focus on Texas stuff. But right now, we're in a special inflection point because they are at the peace talks right now. There's a summit going on in Istanbul between a delegation from the Ukraine and a delegation from Russia. And right now, you're seeing some flexing while they're at the table. And just like you see in mobster movies when they have the 5 families to get together and they're trying to work out the new territories of the new deal or who's going to get like the heroin biz or whatever. Sometimes outside of the room, there's shows of force that are happening with the thought process that it can strengthen your negotiating hand at the table. And I feel like that's what's going on here. And that's pretty crucial here because on the one hand, you see all this chaos, you see a whole bunch of stuff blowing up, you see drone attacks, you see bridges being bombed, and you think, oh my goodness, this is getting worse. They want you to think that. That's a negotiating tactic. They want you to think, whoa, we've really got to, whatever it takes, or this is about to get out of hand. They want you to get emotional. So I don't know, but of all the things that are possible, you have to whittle it down to what's the most probable. And I think that's the most probable. I think Putin, if he does a good show of force here, he can ask for a whole lot and maybe get it. If Putin doesn't, then they don't have any incentive to be scared, or they can put their foot down, or we're not going to take a bad deal. But when you have all these things blowing up, and when you have suffering, when you have complaints, that can push. Businesses do this too. Heck, you see professional athletes do this. When they're in a contract year, don't you see a lot of fireworks? Don't you see them on their best behavior as well? But this is, there's a lot of interesting possibilities that I don't think are probable. Like when Condoleezza brought up that this could be an inside job, which, I mean, it kind of, there's some credence lent to that because I've speculated, for what I know, that I doubt that Ukraine could do this without some sort of help from an outside actor. And that would explain how they were able to pull off this fairly sophisticated attack, although cheap, but sophisticated attack.
In Russia, as he tries to figure out who did this inside.
Oh, wait, I got to start over. Yeah, this is Condoleezza Rice on Fox and Friends this morning.
Vladimir Putin is undoubtedly now wondering whether there was an inside job. You're probably going to see a witch hunt in Russia as he tries to figure out who did this inside. So it just shows that just with a little bit of help, the Ukrainians can make Vladimir Putin pay for his aggression.
Also, Condoleezza Rice on Fox and Friends this morning was talking about Putin in the middle of the negotiations, thinking, you want Putin to think that he's better off stopping this whole thing, whether he gets what he is asking for or not. You're trying to put a pain point on him while he's at the table, hence the very obvious timing of the Ukrainian drone strike.
Do you believe that the Russians have been sincere at all to this point in the negotiations?
Well, I do think there's a little part of Vladimir Putin that recognizes, particularly that the energy infrastructure in Russia is degrading and that he would be better off to stop this war. But it's being overcome by that other Putin who still thinks he can extinguish Ukraine. And, he needs the president more than the president needs him. And so making very clear to him that he's not going to get his maximalist claims is extremely important at this point.
But I don't think he's in like a raging maniac territory right now because primarily because of the reporting around this phone call that he had with President Trump this morning. And Trump talked about it on his social media. Fox Nation was reading it to you.
Trump posting this on social media right here, saying, I just finished speaking by telephone with President Vladimir Putin of Russia. The call lasted approximately 1 hour and 15 minutes. We discussed the attack on Russia's docked airplanes by Ukraine and also various other attacks that have been taking place by both sides. It was a good conversation, but not a conversation that will lead to immediate peace. President Putin did say, and very strongly, that he will have to respond to the recent attack on the airfields.
And also going on right now is the situation with Iran, which even in the midst of all this chaos and kind of painful week of stories coming out of Russia, Russia said that they are going to be on our side of the table when it comes to dealing with the Iran negotiations. I thought that was interesting. We go back to Condoleezza Rice on Fox and Friends this morning.
I read in the papers the administration is going to give up on this. I never believe that you should try to speculate on what's going on inside. I've been inside. I can remember getting up in the morning and seeing the newspapers. The Bush administration should stop Iran from enriching. I think, why didn't I think of that? Right.
Right.
So we should be careful about speculating what the administration is thinking, but zero enrichment would be my view.
So if that happens, then is Russia our friend when it comes to negotiating with Iran, but they're anti-us when it comes to the negotiations with the Ukraine? Or is Trump successfully positing himself as sort of a disinterested third party who's just trying to work out deals and come up with world peace? Because if you start to wrap all this stuff together, what's going on in Gaza and Iran and Ukraine, we get all this wrapped up. I mean, how does this guy not get a Nobel Peace Prize? 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Coming up next on The James Show, Democrats are already working on impeaching Trump. I doubt it'll work. Jeff Crouere from Real America's Voice, and I will discuss it. 800-288-9227. This is News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. I am your host, James Parker. So much of the news swirling around D.C., it's just a tornado of activity here in the first 5 months of Trump 2.0. And I think a lot of us would have guessed in the first 6 months that there would already be talks of impeaching the guy. And then here we are. And my next guest is going to help us break it down. His name's Jeff Crouere. You can see him on your TV on Real America's Voice. He's also a radio host. But he's actually a friend of mine. It's funny because welcome to the show, Jeff. Garrett booked you. He's like, yeah, I got a good guy to talk about this tomorrow, Jeff Crouere. I was like, I know that dude. So welcome to the James Show here on WBAP, Jeff.
Hello, my longtime friend. Good to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Well, let's just go ahead and jump right in it because this is your wheelhouse. This is where you dominate, talking about the scuttlebutt in D.C.
Yeah.
And we know this is all political theater. We know this is all for show. We know this is just to rally the base, and whoever's pitching this, they're going to get some attention and they're going to get some name recognition. They're going to get to do a bunch of interviews. But even if it is just a big kabuki theater, it kind of works. It really, like when they tried this on Trump 1.0, it really did rally their base. It really did work out well for the people who were trying it. They got all kinds of notoriety and whatnot. So, Jeff, your thoughts on the movement already to impeach Trump?
Well, I mean, Democrats deliver for their base. I mean, Democrats impeached him twice. I mean, Democrats passed radical legislation under Biden. I mean, Democrats do it. I mean, and of course, if they have an opportunity again, they'll impeach him again, and they'll investigate him, and they'll make his life miserable, and they'll investigate the family. That's what Democrats do. I mean, they act. Republicans just talk. So I have no doubt that they will do it again. I mean, of course, it's based on nothing. I mean, they're all crazed lunatics. They all have Trump derangement syndrome. But, I mean, they're going to deliver. They don't deliver anything of consequence, but they certainly deliver good Trump bashing and impeachments, and that's what they'll do.
Well, here's the other thing that has me concerned, Jeff Crouere, is we saw them do this between his two terms. In that 4-year span, they decided, we're going to go ahead and arrest this guy and charge him with the crime. We'll figure out later what the crime is. They had already made up their minds that they were going to take him to court and charge him with something, and then they just backfilled the excuse for it later. And that's what they're doing here. What has he done that requires impeachment? I don't know. We're going to impeach him, and we'll just figure it out when we get there.
Exactly. And they're going to investigate him, and they're going to claim that he's mentally incompetent, and they're doing that now. Of course, everything that they did not do with Joe Biden, who actually was mentally and still is mentally incompetent. But no, what Trump has done is he's secured the border. I mean, he's brought down inflation. Military recruitment is up. I mean, he's trying to bring peace to the world. I mean, he's trying to do what he can on his own with no help from Congress and certainly no help from the Democrats. So, yeah, of course, there's no reason to impeach him. There wasn't a reason to impeach him for the phone call to Zelensky back in 2019. There was no reason to impeach him for January 6th when he told people to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard. None of it was worthwhile, but they did it anyway. Because that's all they have, James. They just have Trump derangement syndrome. That's it.
I think it's important that we go ahead and bring this up and start the conversation before they do, because when we set this level of context, then it's going to be obvious what they're doing, because the midterm elections, they're happening next year. And
right.
I think one of the main pillars that they're going to run off, maybe the main talking point in their platform, is going to be, we need a majority in the House so we can impeach Trump. And I think that's going to be the thrust of the midterm elections.
Yeah, they offer hate. That's an anti-Trump derangement syndrome. They offer really nothing of any positive consequence to people. I mean, you just look at the Biden 4 years. I mean, people were hurting economically. The border was open. I mean, America really suffered. Didn't matter. I mean, all they wanted to do is try to, go after Trump and prevent him from running again. Amazingly, he was able to still evade all of that, run again, win again, and now he's back in office, and he's even better than he was the first term, in my opinion. So, yeah, I'm glad you're having a conversation now. That is what they're going to do. They have nothing else. They've got no leaders. I mean, I cited a poll in my recent column. Pete Buttigieg is their leading candidate for president in 2028. That's how pathetic they are right now.
Well, we're talking with Jeff Crouere. He's a talk show host on the radio, and you can see him on TV on Real America's Voice. Can you hang on for another segment? Because I wanted to ask you about that SAM, the Speaking to American Males initiative. I want to ask you about the big, beautiful bill. We got a lot to chat about. Can you hang on for another segment? I don't know if you're.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay.
sir. Be glad to.
Because we only scheduled him for one. But this is Jeff Crouere from Real America's Voice. You're welcome to share your thoughts as well. We'll talk about Speaking to American Males, thoughts on the big, beautiful bill, and all things Trump coming up next with Jeff Crouere. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hello, fellow Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Yes, we continue with a great talk show host in his own right, Jeff Crouere. You can hear him, you can see him on Real America's Voice on one of your cable streaming options. He shows up all over the place there, and then also he has his own radio show elsewhere. But getting back into the political talk in D.C., Jeff Crouere, I think we've all gotten a good giggle out of the initiative called SAM. That's the Democrats' $20 million initiative called Speaking with American Males. And I just enjoy watching them try and invent reasons that they lost, they pushed males away, except for admitting the real problem.
Well, I mean, the real problem is their message. The real problem are their candidates. I mean, the real problem are the consequences of their policies.
Exactly.
And males, I think, have just had enough. And they left the Democrat Party in droves. So, yeah, they have a real problem. They have a real problem with candidates like Pete Buttigieg, who's leading right now in 2028.
That'll win us over, won't it, Jeff?
And Kamala Harris, who was their nominee in 2024. I mean, they don't have JFK anymore, James. They don't have Harry Truman anymore. They've got people like that.
Well, I wouldn't even go. You don't go back that far, Jeff. You're doing yourself a disservice. They don't have Joe Rogan anymore. You want to talk to one of the number one men whisperers on planet Earth right now? Who has a better sway and influence with male voters in America other than the biggest podcast, Joe Rogan? And he's a manly man. He works out. He has muscles. He does cage fighting. He talks about sports and bourbon and
right.
So that you had him. Go get him back on your team. You don't have to come up with something new. But here's where I would start, Jeff, and they don't consult me. I would take some of the $20 million initiative if they wanted to get my advice. But I would say, here, let's start with this. Why don't you just say one nice thing about men? Can we just start there?
Mm-hmm. Right. And I haven't heard it. All I see are people like Tim Walz, who plays a role of a real man, but he's not. And he tries to act tough, but he really comes across as an idiot. And that's what they do. They present people like that. Joe Rogan, all the people that I think were in the middle left them. I mean, just got disgusted by them. And that's their problem. I mean, their agenda is their problem. They've gone so far left. My Louisiana native, the crazy man, the Raging Cajun, he rails about that all the time on these podcasts. I mean, he knows.
Carville.
I mean, yeah, he knows. Yeah. Carville. He knows that the party has gone way, way too far to the left, and he's worried about it, and as he should be.
All right, let's talk about. I think it's something that should be of concern to Republicans, especially big R Republicans. Is this big, beautiful bill scenario may have just split up what was a great little tag team of Elon and Trump? Is it now Elon versus Trump?
I mean, I don't think it will be. I mean, I think on this they disagree. I think they'll still work together on future projects, but I agree with Elon. I mean, I think this bill is really a mess, and I think there's some good things in there that I like. But, I mean, imagine what Elon went through. I mean, Elon went through hell to do a service for the nation, to lead Doge. And for that, he had death threats. He had his Teslas attacked, his dealerships firebombed. He had all kinds of problems that he had to deal with just because he wanted to serve the public for free. He wasn't getting paid a dime. And as a result of all that, they don't put any of his cuts in the package. They're now going to do a little rescission package of $9.8 billion.
Whoop-de-doo.
Peanuts.
Yeah.
That's peanuts. Yeah. I mean, he identified about $170 billion on the way to doing $1 trillion in savings. And I mean, it was a massive service to the American people. It's the best thing we've had since the Grace Commission in the 80s, and it's even better than that. So I can understand why he's upset, James.
Jeff Crouere from Real America's Voice. Why does Trump support this?
Trump wants his tax cuts renewed. He is really keen on that. And I think that for him is his number one goal. And he feels like he has to put this coalition together to get it through. The Republicans have barely any margin in the House. So they got it through. What I'm hoping, James, is they can fix it in the Senate and they can satisfy the fiscal conservatives like Ron Johnson and Rand Paul and Mike Lee. And those are people I all really admire. And if they come on board, if they see some cuts, then we can get this thing through. But we're a long way from that. But I do want to see the president succeed. I mean, I'm a big supporter of the president. I want his agenda to go through. But I don't want another kicking the can down the road. Republicans have been doing that for years. They were given power to act. We've got to do something about the spending. James, we're $37 trillion. We've already added $800 billion to the national debt in the 4.5 months Donald Trump has been president. It's got to be addressed.
Well, I find this especially frustrating. It's one of the reasons I'm not a registered Republican, is that when we put Democrats in power, they overspend, we get big deficits and inflation. Then when we put Republicans in, it's about 95% of the same. We overspend, we have big deficits and inflation. And if you want a smaller government, you don't have anybody to vote for, whether in D.C. or in Austin.
You got Thomas Massey, you got Rand Paul, you've got a few people, but that's it. I mean, you don't have many that are fiscal hawks. You don't have many that care about spending. Both parties, you're right, both parties are to blame. Under both parties, presidential administrations of the debt has skyrocketed. Under President Trump's first term, it went up about 7.8 trillion. Under Joe Biden, it went up 8.6 trillion. And we're on the road to increase it even more now.
Well, that's
So
what we
this is the
talk
time
about
to do it.
when we gripe about the deep state. This is what we mean. It means doesn't matter who you send down there. There is just this organization that has this inertia that can't be stopped, no matter how hard you vote. Jeff Crouere, Real America's Voice. How do we find your work online, sir?
My website is my last name, crouere.net, CROUERE.net. All the good stuff is on there. And James, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Good to talk to you again, Jeff. We'll have you back on soon.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, fun stuff. Now, my next story, hilarious. If I had Crouere for another segment, I know he's got some hot opinions on this one. But it is insane that Anthony Weiner, a guy who went to prison for repeatedly sexting minors on 3 different occasions, is now running for mayor of New York City. And I think it's just absolutely insane. New York City! On top of that, The View, the ladies of The View, are cheering him on. The delicious audio gold is coming up next. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Does the name Anthony Weiner ring a bell? Anthony Weiner is the guy. This story is the first time I really thought that we're plugged into the Matrix. We're not actually living a regular, real planet Earth existence here. We're just some power cell for the robots. They've already won the revolution, and we're just we're imagining all this. This is just being typed in by some AI bot that's running us through a simulation, because there's no way the guy who keeps sending Weiner pics is named Weiner. You've got to be kidding me. And then on top of that, this isn't like a Brett Favre situation. He's sending it to minors on top of that. So, okay, what's the guy's wife's name? And I kid you not, look it up. Her name's Huma. Huma. Now, when she's out in public, she doesn't use his name, but in marriage speak, her name is Huma Weiner. I'm not making that up. Like, that really happened. And ever since 2011, I've been above 50% in my belief that we're plugged into a simulation right now. We're in the Matrix is what we're in. We all got a good laugh at that. Ha ha. The Weiner guy got in trouble for the Weiner pics, and his wife's name's Huma. And it was a good giggle, other than the fact that he was, sending pics to, I think it was like a minor in Seattle or something to that effect. But he got in trouble, slap on the wrist. He's no longer in Congress. He was in Congress. You believe that? And then he did it again in 2013. And then he did it again in 2015. And he actually went to prison for it. So this isn't a guy who made a mistake or whatever. This is a guy who has an established pattern, and it's reached a level of compulsion. Because whenever you continue to do this terrible behavior, just right in the face of negative consequences, just running into brick walls, you continue to do it. Yeah, you have some sort of weird compulsion. You have an addiction. You are a sex predator. You are beyond deviant. You're criminal. But at the time, old Parker here kept some receipts. Oh, don't you love the Audiotron 3000? Never forgets. Back in 2011, the first time it broke out, I made a montage of the media downplaying what we called Weinergate at the time. So this is my media downplays Weinergate montage. And just look at how 14 years later, how wrong are these people about almost everything important in the news?
But okay, so what? Who cares? I think he's credible when he says I didn't send it.
Nothing, but nothing should matter to you less than the legal sexual conduct of any politician.
Couldn't he be fully clothed almost, and then they could Photoshop it and put it like that?
I'm giving you the context, and I'm giving you why a lot of people were inclined to give him the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, wake me when we have a real sex scandal, Anderson.
We have so much going on in this country, and this we are spending 4 days.
Well, we probably shouldn't care a lot. It's sort of a great lark of a diversion.
Republicans in Washington are still trying to kill Medicare and not raise the debt ceiling, but the anti-social media is fixated on a Twitter scandal.
Somebody's out to get him, apparently.
What Anthony Weiner is even accused of doing, even if true, is just nothing.
And so how wrong were they? He did it again in 2013, 2015, went to prison, got out, and now he's running for mayor of New York City.
New York City!
Here he is on The View, and they sound like they're on his side. They just set up the table for him to explain himself, and then you just got to hear this for yourself. This is some mind-blowing stuff right here.
You resigned from Congress in 2011.
By the way, this was on Friday. This wasn't years ago. This was Friday.
You resigned from Congress in 2011 over a sexting scandal. 2 years later, you stepped down from the mayoral race after sexting again under the alias Carlos Danger. And then in 2016, you sent lewd texts to a minor and served 15 months in prison, in addition to becoming a registered sex offender. So with all that said, why do you think, or why should New Yorkers give you a chance at a political comeback?
Hang on. Why should you let this guy on your show? I wouldn't let this guy on my show, and I'm like 8 rungs down the showbiz ladder from The View. Oh my, I'm like just 1 rung above birthday clowns. I'm one rung below rodeo clowns, and I wouldn't let this guy on my show. Shame on you, The View, for taking this guy serious. I mean, this is a guy who can't live within 1,000 feet of a school, but he can be in the mayor's mansion?
Well, let me just say this. I mean, all of that happened, and I accept responsibility for it. You won't hear me do what some other people in public life have done, Donald Trump or Andrew Cuomo or Eric Adams. I'm a victim. They persecuted me for no reason.
None of those people were sending wiener pics to minors, but go ahead.
And I was dealing with very serious problems. I was dealing with what I now understand to be addiction. I lost my brother Seth to addiction.
You think?
And I accepted. I didn't ask for a trial. I pled guilty.
Yeah, but see, he's not addicted to coffee. He's not addicted to Bud Light. He's addicted to being a predator on children. Anyway.
My time in prison. Served in a halfway house, served probation, went to try to do good work for the formerly incarcerated. And I guess what I'm saying to people is maybe don't vote for me in spite of what they know about me, but maybe consider that journey, that idea that we all go through things and we come out the other side. And also, what does it mean? You know, I'm Jewish, but they have this notion in Catholicism around you suffer for a reason so you can be of service at the other end. So I'm not asking people, I'm doing the opposite of what a lot of politicians do when they're in my position. Ignore that problem, pretend it didn't happen, blame someone else. I am saying, yes, I did these things. I got into recovery. I try to make my life better. And now if I can be of service, and I'm a damn good politician. I come up with answers. Yep. I talk to people directly.
You are.
I don't try to butter over things. I try to be direct. Then why shouldn't I? And if it's just because I have bad things in my past, that's not a good enough reason. I mean, look, all I can ever be is who I am right now. Yeah. And that brought me to this stage.
Yeah, and you're a sexual predator on children. You know, if you have a felony on your record and you're a registered sex offender, you can't get a job at a bank or a daycare. You can't live within 1,000 feet of a school. You have all kinds of restrictions. Should you be allowed to run for office? Like, if the voters of New York want to have him as mayor, I'm not sure if I'm even cool with saying, well, if this is what they want, you know, they chose him. Shouldn't that be a deal breaker? You're a registered sex offender. You're a serial child predator. Certainly in a metropolitan area of 20 million people, y'all can find someone who would be a good mayor who doesn't repeatedly over years and years prey on children. Someone who isn't a registered sex offender? Oh my God. New York, how low can you go? You think this guy's going to win? 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. We'll continue with this. Should pedophiles be allowed to run for office? I'm James Parker on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Well, hey there. Welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM WBAP. Did you crash your car when you found out Anthony Weiner's running for mayor of New York? Did you crash your car when you heard him on The View and they were deferential to him? They were cheering him on when he's like, I'm a damn good politician. They're like, yeah, you are. Well, yeah, listen, I go to the justice.gov and you can find a little bit of paperwork here on former Congressman Anthony Weiner, whose first wife's name, Humma. I just can't get over that because I'm a child. But he was sentenced originally to 21 months in prison for transferring obscene material to a minor. Now, he only had to serve 15 of that, but that's 15 more months than you've done in prison. And transferring obscene material to a minor, is that a bad thing? I thought, do you just have to be a middle school librarian to do that? I didn't know that was a felony in some instances, but not in others. And I'm scratching my head. Shouldn't be, if you're a convicted felon and on the sexual offender registry list, should you be running for mayor? Should you be allowed to run for mayor? Now, that's one of the things that you had to hear up and down last year when Trump got convicted and he was now a convicted felon. Remember how that was like a disqualifying factor? He's a convicted. Who would vote for a convicted felon?
Donald Trump is a convicted felon.
A convicted felon, convicted felon, a convicted felon, a convicted felon.
Convicted felon, a convicted felon.
A convicted felon.
A convicted felon.
Convicted as
remember
a
that?
felon.
Remember that all the way? I remember all the way to last year when being a convicted felon was a deal breaker to people. And it was a big deal. 800-288-9227. Are we in the Matrix? Is that what we're discovering here? This can't be real. Ryan in Hazlitt, you're on WBAP. Your thoughts on Weiner?
Hey, James, I think you need to dig a little bit deeper. That Humma, she was the assistant, I believe,
to Hillary Clinton,
to a Secretary of State Hillary Clinton.
Yep.
I think that's why Anthony has renewed political aspirations, because his wife is connected to the Clintons.
That's a former connection. Now, I'm sure they're all still friends, especially in a professional setting. But the even more dastardly part is because he couldn't keep his wee-wee off of pictures that he was sending to children. When the FBI came and picked up his laptop, they actually found some traces of Hillary Clinton's emails because, there's a little bit of overlap there. So if anything, you would think Hillary Clinton would want that sloppy actor the heck out of Dodge because he almost sunk her once before.
Yeah, but that family will do anything to get back in power in any way, shape, or form.
None of us doubt that, Ryan. None of us doubt that at all. It's just crazy when you see the weird overlaps that this all has. This overlaps with the Hillary Clinton email scandal, and then you have the other Hillary Clinton scandals that were going on involving, falsifying evidence. And man, that laptop, this guy, when you're that compromised, when you have that level of immoral foibles, you got to think this guy just must be blackmailed to the hilt. Like, that's why they were taking everyone to Epstein Island, so you get blackmail material on them. Love that theory. Andre and Irving, you're on WBAP. Your thoughts on Weiner?
So we knew this when I lived in New York, that Weiner was a sleazebag when he was in the city council. He was a sleazebag when he was a Queens congressman. The only reason why he got off so easy when he was in jail.
Word choice, Andre.
Apologies.
Okay.
Still there?
Yeah. So the only reason he got off so easily when he went to jail
was because his connections with his wife, Huma Abedin, who was Hillary Clinton's personal assistant. Mm-hmm. If it was any other regular pervert, he would have gotten 5 to 15 years easily for sending pictures of his private parts to a little girl.
Well, 3 times. 3 times he did that.
And then he goes on live TV and says, "Oh, I have an addiction." No. I drink cups of coffee every day. People smoke cigarettes. That's an addiction. You touching little kids and sending pics to little kids? No, you're a disgusting pervert who has a much bigger issue than that.
Yeah, I'm
also realized to a bigger issue in New York. That's the best New York can do.
I know that's the mind-blowing part. A metropolitan area of 20 million people. You got to get the convicted pedophile. He shouldn't be in the mayor's office. He should be in a wood chipper, Andre. Thank you very much.
Well, and that's the thing. Thank you.
Steven in Dallas, you're on WBAP. Your thoughts on Weiner?
Yes, sir. I just want to speak along my own case in a situation. I have a brother that 22 years ago made a bad decision. He was filed and accused of grooming a 14-year-old at the age of 19. Again, that was 20-something years ago. But to this day, this man can't get a job anywhere. He can't leave his home without advising somebody that he's going on a trip. If he decides to leave the state of Texas, go to Louisiana, hell, we try to go golfing in Florida, and the state of Florida wouldn't allow him to be even on the ground less than 48 hours. So I'm just saying is if we take things so strictly and everything falls under certain kind of guidelines for pedophiles and pedophilia and things of that nature, why the hell is our government not actually standing up and abiding by that? It seems like we're falling under the situation of do as I.
Yeah, well, also, I would like to say to the voters on Team Blue, like, my God, look at what you people will put up with. You tried to run a guy who had mashed potato for brains, and you told us that he was smart for the last 5 years when we all saw clear evidence that he wasn't. You tried to tell us Kamala Harris was likable and Tim Walls is manly. You tried to tell us the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation. You tried to tell us Jussie Smollett got beat up by guys in MAGA hats. Like, Are you guys okay over there? Are you seeing the same TV we're looking at? Are you getting the same information? That's why I think that doesn't seem as likely as the fact that we're plugged into the Matrix, because that's the most reasonable scenario here on why modern America and the political scene has gotten this out of whack. Should pedophiles be allowed to run for office? Why do I even have to have this conversation? 800-288-9227. Coming up, we're going to talk about PBS and NPR may finally get defunded and why that's a great thing. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP. Hey there, welcome to the James Show. I'm your host, James Parker. You're listening to News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. We're just having a good old time. And I mean, I'm kind of laughing, but I'm also kind of scared. Anthony Weiner's running for mayor of New York City. That's crazy. He can do whatever he wants to do. I am more appalled by the reaction to it. Why is everyone not just putting this guy in a catapult and just chunking him out of town whenever you see him? Why would The View even let him on The View? And if he's going to be on The View, why don't you use this as an excuse to beat him up and show the world that we don't care if you agree with us politically or you've been an effective congressman for your district. If you serially abuse children, that's a deal breaker. That's not a deal breaker for you ladies on The View. So if you're not familiar, if you're just joining us, Anthony Weiner was in Congress up until 2011 when he got in trouble for sending pics of his last name to an underage girl. I think this was in Seattle or something like that. So he had to resign from Congress. There was a disgrace, and he kind of went away. And then he was running for mayor 12 years ago, and he got in trouble again. Same thing. Now, his wife, Humma, was still with him at the time, and I drug this out of the old Audiotron 3000. This is Humma Weiner. I mean, she was going by Humma Abedin at the time, I guess still. But she had to come out and make a terrible speech on behalf of her husband.
He's made some horrible mistakes, both before he resigned from Congress and after. But I do very strongly believe that is between us and our marriage.
No, I don't think so. Well, maybe there's something that does need to be worked out with your marriage situation. They're divorced now, by the way. But shouldn't that be a deal breaker? If you can't get a job at a daycare, if you're not allowed like within 1,000 feet of a school, shouldn't that disqualify you from being mayor of the largest city in the country? Or heck, the mayor of Bucktussle. There could be a town with like 4 people, and 3 of them would be a better choice for mayor than Anthony Weiner. This is Frank in Mansfield. You're on WBAP. Your thoughts on Weiner?
Anthony, I have insight on this. My family from New York, you can spot an accent here perhaps, helped run his campaign for mayor the first time.
Oh, good job, family. Thanks a lot, Frank's family.
We have huge fights at weddings and funerals, the left versus the right. And then, anyway, she goes by Umer, his ex-wife. They were to get divorced, but they didn't because they didn't want to be in trial. You couldn't testify against each other when he did his sex crimes. He's an egotistical, maniac sex offender. If you're talking about him, he's happy. He doesn't care what you're talking about as long as it's about him. It's ridiculous. This is perversion on steroids. And Uma, they did get divorced after all this cleared and he went to jail. And guess who she married?
George Soros is,
son.
George.
Yeah. So you follow the money and you say why and how and all that.
I'm sorry to talk over you. For those of y'all who didn't know, Humma Weiner ended up marrying George Soros' son.
Yeah. So that's who's pulling the strings still over there. And then you got
Lord.
Cuomo right down the block who put everybody in the old folks home and they all died. And he's running he's going to run too. So perversion on steroids. It's ridiculous. It's obscene. He's a bad guy. And you wouldn't let your kids hang around this guy, right? And he's going to go run from there now. What the hell's going on, right?
You would think The View wouldn't let him on their show. You would think that they'd say, no, we're not going to be associated with that. And if they did, they said nice things about him. Oh, you're a good politician.
Yeah. Well, they're all getting paid one way or the other, or somebody's got tips on them, right? With all this other junk coming out.
Who are the people that are paying these folks off? Because I never get an offer. I got to run around in a 10-year-old Toyota with body damage here. When am I going to get paid off?
They don't like you. You tell the truth. And you're on the right side, man.
Well, that can change, and I'm probably a lot cheaper than most of the guys out there.
You wouldn't change. I don't think you would. This guy is just really bad. He was at a wedding, one of the weddings I was at, and my whole family of cops and the law enforcement guys on the other side, special service guys. And I said, look, if this guy gets punched out in the bathroom, don't get mad at us. They go, we have Secret Service people here and everything. I said, they don't care. Keep him away from everybody. He didn't show up. They didn't show up.
Fun stuff. Great call, Frank in Mansfield. Appreciate your time, sir. Let's do Lloyd and McKinney. You're next up on WBAP. Your thoughts on Weiner?
Hey, thanks for having me. Okay, I'm a previous Democrat,
The party has gone so far, man. Like allowing women and allowing men and women's sports and beating them up is okay. Now they're saying this is okay. Like, no, this is ridiculous. How can he possibly have the best interest of the city with this kind of history? You always have to be questioned everything he does.
Well, I even if he has like the perfect policy positions, because I already don't like the guy based on his politics, but I like to try and reframe this in my head if I can. And what if this guy was sort of like a lowercase L libertarian, half conservative like me, and was going to govern that way? And I like to think I would still be against him. Like it's a deal breaker. I don't care if it was my brother, that would be a deal breaker. And I'd just bang in my head that Sonny Hostin is sitting next to him, who can find offense in the most trifling of causes, who's saying nice things about this dude. That's the mind-blowing part. Not that this psycho is running again, but that anyone's taking him serious enough to give him a major platform like that. It's like, wow, you guys, you should have tricked him into coming in the show and then pushed him into a wood chipper is what you should have done.
That would have been great.
Well,
but maybe they're just handing over the seat or the mayor to a Republican, because even Democrats are going to be like, no, I can't vote for him based off of this.
It's interesting to me how many people, and I hear your story a lot, who have converted, and it's been on these social issues. Yeah, no one cares about fiscal issues. No one cares about, well, we're at $36 trillion in debt, and I realize that most empires collapse after economically overextending themselves. And now it's these social issues, huh? That's what brought you over.
No, it was a bit of everything, but it took a good bit, not just one topic.
Okay, well, fair enough. Maybe we'll have a longer discussion about that sometime. Thank you, Lloyd.
Appreciate it.
Let's go to, is this the Steve in Carrollton, the big bad black conservative?
You better believe it is.
Yeah. All right, Steve, your thoughts on Weiner?
Well, it's not every day I get to talk about Weiner on the radio, so I get excited sometimes. But today is special because I think about Weiner, but then I think about his opponent. Some would say the other word for Weiner. I mean, Cuomo, the guy who killed half of New York during the China virus. He's the opponent of the guy who's diddling little kids. I don't understand the people in New York. There's no good answer, from what I can see, as to why the only options in New York are the craziest of crazy people.
Well, he didn't even get in trouble for killing all those people during COVID. He got in trouble for being a creeper himself with, what was it, someone on his staff that he was sexually harassing. And we also learned too much about this dude, Steve, in the press conferences. He would come out there wearing a polo shirt, and you could see through it that the dude has nipple rings. And, that's not really a deal breaker or affects, your policy preferences either way. But when you're in your mid-60s and you're rocking nipple rings, you have some sort of weird sex thing going on, because you're not a rock star. It doesn't go along with the territory of what you do for a living or for a hobby. You are a creeper. And then we made those jokes, and then months later, he got pushed out of office for being a creeper. Yeah. Y'all got a great crop of candidates up there in New York City. Good. I'm sure your next mayor is going to be just fantastic. Coming up next. Yeah, I want NPR and PBS to be defunded, but wait until you find out how absolutely biased they have been with your tax money. That's coming up next on The James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey there, fellow Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 93.3 FM, WBAP. Welcome back to the big show. And in one of my favorite fingers crossed Doge cuts in the crosshairs is NPR and PBS. Now, I have a more personal animus for these institutions than you probably do. I work in broadcasting. I've been in both radio and TV at several different stations and on both sides. And I've always found it just a big pain that everywhere I go, I have to compete against the government. I have to compete against the government who's using my own tax dollars to fund my competition. On top of that, they do such a terrible job with news dissemination. It's supposed to be, they're not beholden to the profit motive, so they don't have any incentives to do anything but tell the truth. And here they are, among the biggest liars of any media platform out there. And it shouldn't matter whether or not they agreed with me. I would still be opposed to them. But that just makes me sick to my stomach to see how bad it is. Now, my next guest has the receipts on that. This is Dan Schneider from the Media Research Center. And you kind of hear them on the James Show quite a bit because I use newsbusters.org on an almost daily basis for show prep. So welcome, Dan Schneider, to the James Show.
It is even worse than you suggest because your own tax dollars, you have to pay taxes. Your own tax dollars are funding this competitor, subsidized by everybody else, to compete against you. And of course, they're lying, thieving, cheating snakes. I just can't wait for Congress to pass the president's rescission request to cut the funding for NPR and PBS.
Well, I'm a big fan of what y'all do at the Media Research Center because I don't know anyone else who's doing it, Dan. And we should specify, by the way, Dan Schneider, not the Nickelodeon guy. Media Research Center, they're not the same at all. And what a terrible coincidence that has been for you guys. But you actually...
You're about to say, what a terrible name, but it's not my fault.
No, not at all. Not at all. Just terrible coincidence. By the way, don't ever Google what all James Parkers have done to get themselves arrested. That's going to be a future episode, by the way. But getting back on the topic here, you guys actually have the funding and the staff to sit down and watch and log what goes on these other channels. And what y'all have uncovered with PBS and NPR, is it the most biased platform you guys cover?
MSNBC would give it a run for its money, but the very fact that our tax dollars are subsidizing to a tune of over $500 million a year, something that would compete with MSNBC for being radicalized, and it doesn't stop. And some people will say, well, but my local station is good. We've been looking at the 1,000+ local stations across the country. Hardly any of them spend more than 30 minutes or maybe an hour every day with local programming. So if you're sitting there in Tyler, Texas, and listening to the NPR signal there, like 23 out of 24 hours of news, quote in air quotes, comes from New York City, Boston, Massachusetts, Washington, D.C., and LA. New York City! Yeah, New York City. And it's their left-wing propaganda. And Congress, Marjorie Taylor Greene is the chairman of the Doge Oversight Committee in the House. And so we had a hearing about 2 months ago. And the Marxist CEO of NPR claimed that there's no political bias at all at NPR, that she has seen no evidence of any bias. Well, we've got the receipts. We can show how NPR and PBS have, they gave Kamala Harris almost 90% positive coverage and almost 100% negative coverage to Donald Trump when they were running in the last election. They are pure propaganda outlets doing everything they can to get the most liberal candidates elected, into office.
Okay, well, you're whispering sweet nothings in my ear, getting me all excited. Could they actually be cut? Because it's my understanding, as the big, beautiful bill stands right now, most of these cuts aren't getting codified. Is NPR and PBS actually in the cuts that made it through the bill?
So here's something that the American public does not quite get yet. The big, beautiful bill, those spending cuts by rule have to be what's called mandatory spending. The big, beautiful bill is not allowed to include discretionary spending. Now, the rescission package that Donald Trump just sent up last night, the rescission package is where we can start to cut discretionary spending. So he specifically has asked Congress to cut the 2 years of spending that were, it's called pre-appropriated in the Biden era. NPR and PBS got 2 years of advanced appropriations. So they've got 2 years of spending coming up in 2026 and 2027 that are just sitting in a big piggy bank. And Donald Trump is saying, okay, Congress, rescind that money. Kill it. Let's stop funding NPR and PBS directly with our tax dollars.
So is it going to work? I mean, do we think that this is actually going to pass?
All right. So the great thing about the rescission measure, just like reconciliation, we don't have that 60-vote threshold in the Senate.
So no filibuster.
Majority in the House, no filibuster. Now, right now, we can lose only 3 Republicans in the House and 3 Republicans in the Senate. Right now, I'm counting 4 Republicans in the House where we have problems and 3 Republicans in the Senate. So in the Senate, if I'm right, today, J.D. Vance casts the tie-breaking vote. In the House, we're going to have to get at least one of those 4 Republicans to side with the president. And if we do that, we'll do what has never happened in 50-some years, that we will actually end direct taxpayer subsidies to these propaganda outlets.
Listen, you guys at Media Research Center, please don't ever quit doing what you're doing, because I don't see anyone else that's a better media watchdog than you guys. And it's because you actually sit there. Like, how many people do you have just logging what is on all these shows every day? You have to have, like, pay people to sit there and watch 8 hours of TV a day.
We literally have people who, in fact, watch these shows. We record these shows, and they have to watch it more than once, because they have to decide what they're going to measure first. Like, how many times does PBS use the term far left versus the term far right? Well, you have to count it. And over a period of time. And by the way, so PBS, how many times did they use the term far left? 162. I'm sorry, they used the term far right 162 times. And in the same time period, they used the term far left only 6 times. 162 times versus 6. This is the kind of bias that we see constantly at NPR and PBS.
Well, you take what we all suspect and you just confirm it with numbers, but you got to put in all that work, and it is really appreciated. I usually tell people to go to newsbusters.org. Is that the best thing you'd promote right now, Dan Schneider?
Yeah, so newsbusters.org is the main site for the Media Research Center, where we publish our stuff. I also oversee Free Speech America, where we address big tech censorship. So that's freespeechamerica.org. But Newsbusters, you can get all of our content there, newsbusters.org.
All right. Well, again, great work. Thank you very much for the insight, Dan Schneider, and I hope they die and are buried in a shallow grave.
Thank you, sir. From your lips to God's ears.
And when I say that, I don't mean the people that work there. I mean just metaphorically the institution of NPR and PBS themselves, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, whatever. Don't at me, and don't call my manager again. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. James, you have people who call your manager? Yeah, sometimes it happens. Coming up next, found a viral video that I think makes an interesting workplace conundrum. Should you be fired if you caused a coworker to, number 2 in their pants? The dilemma coming up next on The James Show. News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. You know, with all the stuff that's making headlines, there's some stuff that's happening in the background that might end up affecting you, or if you're not paying attention, it might affect your pocketbook. My next guest is going to clear up some of the questions I have about the new tariffs that may be hitting. New tariffs. Yeah, I mean, these things are changing. Well, it seems like on an almost daily basis. Lance Threlkill's back on the James Show. And Lance, tell me what's going on with steel and aluminum tariffs.
Yeah, well, just as everything started to settle from the last spike in chaos and back to normalcy, Trump had to throw another beehive on the ground and smash it, and so we got another 25% on top of the 25% we saw back in March.
And when you say we, do you mean All Metals Fabricating?
Yeah, we as a country, we as a manufacturing industry, everybody across the board will be impacted by 25% additional tariffs on all steel and aluminum.
Well, I guess what I'm really asking is, have y'all seen any of these price hikes hit you yet?
Started to today, a little bit, some yesterday. Fortunately, there was an oversupply. A bunch of people bought up a bunch of material back in March or February, really, to try and get in front of, future rate hikes. And so the mills had kind of overproduced and supply was kind of over, creating, prices stabilized and even dropping a little bit. So they're still sitting on a good amount of supply, but yeah, I mean, Ryerson, one of the biggest distributors of the mills, has already started their price increases, but we've been working with some other vendors that, it's looking like next week will really start to hit the prices. Aluminum's up, 10% this week. So, already seen it there, and that'll continue to rise as well.
Well, one of the reasons being given for the hard tariffs isn't just to put the screws on China and some of our competitors, but I saw Kevin Hassett say we're doing this to protect our aluminum and steel industries. What's your response to that, Lance?
That's the narrative. It's just not accurate. The reality is the amount of aluminum and steel. So I guess they're talking about is aluminum and steel mills, and that's just a small percentage of the manufacturing industry in the United States. The vast majority, 75% of the material used in U.S. made manufacturing comes from international sourcing, and so the amount of jobs that the mills employ is 5% compared to what U.S. manufacturing, if that. And so it's while it's a good narrative, it's just not accurate.
All right, we're talking with Lance Threlkill, All Metals Fabricating. You're in town here. What was it, McKinney, if I remember correctly?
We're in Allen. Yes, sir.
Allen. Yeah, next door. I was pretty close.
Yeah, enough.
I remember it was up 75 somewhere. Do you think these tariffs are going to stick? Are they going to be with us for a while?
No, it's a negotiating tactic. And it's worked. It's a disruptive tactic, but we reached a deal with China, but that's apparently been violated. By them. We've reached an agreement with England, zero tariff both ways, I believe it was. We were very close to agreement, and I think we'll lock one in with the EU. We really need to get one done with Canada and Mexico. And I will add, I think it's no coincidence that he did this right on the announcement of the deal with Nippon Steel, which is a Japanese steel mill, and U.S. Steel, the largest steel mill in the United States, $14 billion investment. What he's trying to do is trying to spur international, I believe what he's trying to do is spur international mills into investing into the United States to have their own mills here in the United States, which I think is overall a good strategy. It's just painful in the meantime.
We're talking with Lance Threlkill, All Metals Fabricating, up in Allen. I got it right that time. But you know what, Lance, I remember reading in my little economic egghead journals that we reached peak aluminum years ago. And you would think that, because the population on Earth is expanding to like 8 billion people or whatever we're up to, we'd be using more aluminum than ever. But the argument is that, it used to take 8 grams of aluminum to make a soda can. Now it just takes like 3. I don't remember the exact numbers. But is that your observation too, or am I just got my head in the theory too much? Did we ever reach a peak aluminum?
That's interesting. I have not read that. That would make sense. I mean, you're looking at, people are looking at different materials for different things. Cars have less metal on them, more plastic than they did,
right.
In previously. And so that very well could be true.
Well, check that out. For a guy who does this for a living, I'd love to talk to you about that next time you come on the show, Lance.
Yes, sir. Will do.
All right. Lance Thrillkill, All Metals Fabricating here locally. That's kind of our watchdog on the ground on how these tariffs are going to affect you. Because if those costs get passed along, then it does start to be a problem now, doesn't it? All right. Coming up on the James Show, we will have the workplace dilemma about a guy who made another guy, have an accident on the factory floor. And I'm going to explain how he's a hero. You accidentally making a coworker can go to the bathroom. No. This guy's a hero. That's coming up next. News Talk 820 93.3 FM, WBAP. Now joining me on the James Show is not just a friend of the James Show, but a friend of James the person. Bob Lavelle's back on. And Bob, I love hearing all the stories. Not just that you got a house sold, but the scenario that's going on behind it. A dad called on behalf of a son, or a wife called on behalf of a husband, and just hearing how these people's lives are changed with the one big decision, and that's getting out of the rent race into a house.
We had a lady. She's a listener of yours pretty regularly. She lives in a house now and has a great deal. She loves it, but the person that owned the house passed away. And all of a sudden, all the kids come out of the woodwork, and they all want her to pay all the back taxes and the things and just take their part. Like her attorney said, you know what? You can afford it. Do it. Get your own house. She came in a week ago. She's closing on the 24th of this month in a beautiful dream house, brand new. And that's what we usually talk about. But sometimes you get a great deal on a pre-owned that we never talk about. Like right now, I've got one in Forney. It's a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, built in 2018, so fairly new. One owner. It's immaculate. Low everything about it. It's great. Pricing on it, $293. So for that person looking for a not brand new, but pretty doggone close at $293, heck of a deal out there.
All right. Am I going to have to move to Forney? Jesus. All right, Bob Lavelle, that sounds like a good deal. If you want to see what he can do for you, 972-392-9595. His phone number is 972-392-9595. Don't be worried if you don't think you make enough money or your credit's not good enough. Bob can work with you. Call 972-392-9595. Thanks again, Bob.
Thank you, James.
Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. You know, sometimes when I'm preparing segments for you, I find a nice heady topic that affects you and your family the most, affects your pocketbook or your religion or something to that effect, your town. And I go do a deep dive and try and find some things that you don't know. But other times I'm just flipping through social media. I hear a good story and I think, oh man, you would love this. And here we are. This is a viral video of a workplace dilemma. And even if you're unemployed, you could probably relate to this. But it's a guy telling the story of he was having a problem with someone eating his lunch in the break room at work, and how he dealt with it may get him fired.
I'm about to get fired from my job, or at least I think I am. I'm waiting for them to come get me because basically I made an employee crap their pants on the floor because someone kept stealing my lunch. So I put a crap ton of laxatives in my lunch, right? Because stop stealing my stuff. Figured that'd be the easiest way to catch them. It had been going on for probably a good 2 months or so, and I had told my management about it. And I'm like, look, someone keeps taking my food out of the fridge, and I'm like, it's very weird, right? So I've been letting them know for probably 2, 3, maybe as long as 4 months. I don't know. The time just goes on forever. And one person that I was reporting it to in particular was like, no, we can't help you. There's nothing we can do. I'm like, okay, that's weird. There's cameras in there. So whatever, didn't think anything of it until my wife had given me the idea to basically just put laxatives in there, right? So I'm like, all right, I see what you're saying. So I did that, right? And it was bad. All of a sudden, you just hear like someone's like, oh my God, you just hear like, and it just starts stinking really bad. And then I look over, and there's just like dookie coming out of this dude's shorts. And I'm like, okay, well, I think I know who took it. And yeah, so the bad thing was it was my assistant manager. So that's who I'd been reporting it to. Very not great situation. And I work in a warehouse, so there's just dookie all over the floor. Dude ends up going home, and they think that someone poisoned him, right? Because I don't know how they came to that conclusion. They're like, we have cameras in the break room, and if someone did something to his food, which is what he thinks happened, you're gonna get caught. Stupid me should have put the laxatives in the food at home, but I did it in the break room. So I came forward and I was like, look, this is what was happening. Someone kept eating my food, so I just stuffed it with laxatives. Yeah, that's what happened. But it's my food, they were eating it, so if I'm to consume laxatives, then I mean, that's none of y'all's business, to be honest. And they went off on me about it, and they're like, all right, we need you to go wait in the office, and we'll be there shortly. But you're gonna be in big trouble.
Fired? This guy needs to get a raise. This guy is an American hero. He had a problem. He tried to solve it the right way. He tried to follow the rules. He went to his manager and told him the problem. They didn't do anything to help him. Oh, he tried to do the right thing, HR nerds. But then I think the real genius here is his wife, because didn't he admit it was his wife's idea to do the laxative thing? First off, your wife, brilliant. Maybe she should get hired on and be the manager there. But that's the kind of out-of-the-box thinking that employers say that they're looking for an employee. They don't want you to just be a robot. They don't want you to just be some easily led automaton that just does whatever it says. They need innovators. They need thinkers. They need people who can think outside the box and get it done. Find a path forward when no path forward exists. This behavior should not be punished. This should be celebrated. This should be encouraged. And this should be a great lesson for all of you. You have some trial or tribulation coming up in your life, whether you're experiencing it right now. If not, you're lucky, you will have one soon. And I want you to think of this guy. When someone's stealing your lunch, did he have a hissy fit? Did he cry? Did he just lay down and let it happen? Well, fine, I'll bring 2 lunches so someone else, if they're going to eat my lunch, I'll still have something to eat. He found a way that hopefully I can be this genius if I'm ever in a similar situation. But when you're in a situation like that and you don't think you can see the answer, think like this guy. Think about, can laxatives be the answer to your problem? Sometimes, yes. Sometimes, absolutely, laxatives can be the answer. So, no, this guy shouldn't lose his job or get fired. I mean, if you're the manager who embarrassingly, had the trots on the factory floor, I can see why you would have an incentive to not have to look at this guy at work every day. But that's on you, lunch thief. You should be firing the thief. You should be firing the thief who, then you smelt it, you dealt it. Does that apply here too? That old words of wisdom. I think that was in my fortune cookie yesterday, but I'm asking you, should you get fired for causing a coworker to go number 2 in their pants? I want to hear from you, your thoughts on what I think is an American hero. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. The tale of an American hero continues next on The James Show. News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM, WBAP. Well, hey there. Welcome. Hey there. Welcome to the James Show. News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP. We have a great story about a man who was getting his lunch stolen at work. So he filled it with laxatives. Turned out his boss was stealing his lunch, and it made him have the trots on the factory floor. And looks like he's getting fired for it. I don't think he should get fired. I think he should get promoted. What do you think? 800-288-9227. Let's go to Charlie in Fort Worth. Should he get fired or promoted?
Absolutely not. James, thanks for the call. We had the same problem at my shop where we worked. The brown bag thief kept on, and so the party got tired of it. So he planted a cow chip in his sandwich, real good and tasty.
Oh, my God.
That solved the problem. He didn't like cow chips.
Okay. Well, Charlie, I'm going to go throw up now. Thank you very much for your call. Everybody understands what a cow chip is, right? City people, do y'all know what he's talking about? It's doo-doo, okay? You made him eat cow doo-doo. Steve in Plano, fired or promoted? What do you think?
Totally promoted, make him the manager. It happened to me. I've never heard of anybody doing that, so I almost pooped myself sitting in traffic listening to you tell that story, because I was in high school and somebody kept stealing my lunch. And so after it happened 3 or 4 times, I made a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, but the jelly, I mixed a box of black drought laxative. I don't even know if it's available anymore. It was years ago. Into the jelly, so it looked like preserves, and it never happened again. My lunch was stolen that day, and there was this kid in my school. He was a mooch, and I would carry Chiclets gum in my shirt pocket, and he would always ask if he saw me chewing gum. He would ask for some, so I'd always share. Well, he would always pick out 2 or 3 pieces and put them in his pocket, and then take 1 or 2 to chew. And I just thought it was so I thought that was kind of, well, then come to find out there's another laxative called Phenamid that looks just like Chiclets, except they're a little longer.
Nice.
And not square.
And you got him
and
good?
So I emptied the box, filled it up with Phenamid, and I had the real gum in my shirt pocket. So I was eating gum, and he goes, "Howard, give me some gum." And so I gave him the box, and he poured out 3 or 4, put it in his pocket, and put 2 in his mouth, and took off. And he never asked me for gum again either, so it works.
Well, you're just spreading the love everywhere, Steve. I bet your high school stunk. Thank you very much, sir. After Steve was there. This is Ron and Joshua. You're on WBAP. Fired or promoted?
I think the guy needs to be promoted, because, like I say, he's that's his lunch that his wife or his mother or whatever fixed for him, and he takes it up there to work, and then all the people that's around there to work and stuff. Yeah, a manager that's supposed to, humble the employees and make them good workers and things like this, and this manager becomes the problem, and it's kind of like, yeah, I'd fix him up too. I'd fix him up a good milkshake or a good bologna sandwich or something like that, and watch him lay there on the floor, and
I really enjoyed right. I really enjoyed the fact not only did he bust him, but he did it in a way that's so embarrassing to the guy who was doing something wrong. Like the evil was just punished, and it was just a beautiful display of justice in my eyes.
Perfect. I'd just dose him up again, or if he's telling somebody about that and this, that, and the other, or kind of bragging on eating somebody's lunch. Just like I say, what a bunch of idiots. I mean, they're supposed to be educated people, and especially a manager, and he wants to eat some worker's lunch. That's pretty sorry.
Well, he got what was coming to him. Thank you very much, Ron and Joshua. Let's go to Dave in Burleson. You're on WBAP. What do you think about our lunchtime hero?
Definitely promote it. He ought to get the Presidential Medal of Honor, be recognized at the State of the Union, and be in Trump's parade. That's the way I feel.
Yeah, he should be on Elon's next Doge team, because we have the best engineers and minds at problem solving. Well, this guy's a problem solver. This guy can find a shortcut where roadblocks were put in front of him, where he tried to go through the normal channels, where he tried to talk to his boss and appeal to reason and follow the rules. He found a way out. He found a solution.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, love it. One more. Evan and McKinney, you're going to be my last word on this. Do you think the guy should be fired, promoted, somewhere in between? What do you think?
I think he should be promoted, and maybe even X-Lax or whatever he used should start using him as a spokesperson and put his face in a box or whatever.
Yeah, I like that plan too. That'd be even better because, he might be looking for a job now, and being able to monetize the story probably would help. Be a big bonus.
Exactly. He probably needs a little bit of income, as his mistake was not doing it at home. And to that point, back in junior high, when I was going from elementary to junior high, 7th grade, had a hard time making friends, got teased and bullied, and Mom took things into her own hands and made some brownies with X-Lax and took them up there and got a couple of the bullies back. So they got the trots on the ride home from school on the bus.
This is happening a lot. How many of you people are slipping? Thank you very much for sharing your story there, Evan. How many of y'all are slipping laxatives? I've never slipped anybody laxatives, and this may make me sound like an idiot, but I've never even taken a laxative in my entire life. And that's not a brag. I mean, I do have just a stellar colon, apparently, but I don't even know where to start. I don't know what they look like. The only real laxative experience I have is the scene from Dumb and Dumber where he rigs the drink. All right, we're out of time. Thank God. But stick around. Coming up next, the Mark Levin Show. And after the James Show is over, I know I'm not on for another 21 hours, but you can still get some James Show action. Go to wherever you're listening to podcasts. If you're a podcast person, look for the James Show there. If you want to go waste some time, someone slips you laxatives, you have to spend some time on the throne, and you're going through YouTube, I have some James Show stuff there. I have some James Show stuff on Facebook. So find WBAP, James Parker, the James Show, whatever platforms you're already on. Come find my stuff and entertain yourself until the next show starts tomorrow at 2. I'm James Parker. This has been The James Show on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP.